After one of the largest moves in months, bears have been stretched wide open as they lay in a puddle of their own filth. And after breaching 40K briefly and pulling back to the $37,000 range, do the bulls have the stamina to finish off the bears and concretely break the top of this long-term rigatoni resistance? You cannot afford to miss this. I'm your host, 2Pump Peter, and the question is now, does Bitcoin have enough juice in its caboose for that second pump that will send the bears screaming and creaming back to their mother's arms? Or in fact, will we be plunging into the depths of despair as so many bears across the land desperately desire? We have a lot to be jumping into as Bitcoin is currently at a make or break spot. Yeah, you guessed it, we're right at about 40,000 US dollars, and this is very big. It will concretely change the game if this one thing can happen, and we're just literal inches from it right now. But just how much momentum do the bulls have, and can the bears stave off the pain? So if you get a new channel, make sure you hit that like, subscribe. These absolutely time-sensitive alerts. And without any further magoo, let's pump on in. Wow, so before we absolutely dump into this content, guys, I think it's important to remember what got us here. Bitcoin did not just decide one day, well, everything's going great, and oh good golly, everything just started dumping without anything. No, we had a combination of Elon Musk changing his tune on Bitcoin, right? Having that big fear of environmental stuff. That was one thing. And then people were fearful, did he sell? Did Tesla sell? All of that. Did he just turn our back on Bitcoin? Everything like that. You also had Chinese miners leaving. A ton of different concerns. There was literally dozens and dozens of negative media attacks on Bitcoin, seemingly coordinated, probably because it was coordinated. It has been in the past, and it probably will continue to be that way in the future. But it took all of that and about 3 months of Bitcoin kind of stagnating anyway, to which Bitcoin probably needed a pullback. Well, it did need a pullback, period. It had just gone absolutely parabolic for the past, like six straight months. So it had all of those things going against it. And still, with all of that, Bitcoin was able to be brought under $30,000 for a single daily close. Okay, if we just take a look at this, out of all of the stuff that happened after an insane run-up that got so many people, including Tesla, involved in Bitcoin and more, institutions every single day are joining, different adoption every single day happening, and then seemingly all of that pulled out from underneath us, Bitcoin was able to get a single daily close below 30K, and that single daily close was actually just about a week ago. Other than that, all of these were wicks, okay? Bitcoin was literally underneath $30,000 for seconds during these drops. Okay, you can see where the daily closes were, really nowhere near. The initial one bounced all the way back to about 37,000. Then we had a bounce back around 33. Spent a few days. We did spend a lot of time around 31 and 32, but we had a single daily close below 30K. Okay, so it took all of that for that to happen. And now you expect me, and I guess just a lot of people, to believe that not only are we going to 20K, we're going to 15 and also 10, potentially even below 10K. You expect that to happen when a pullback was needed after one of the largest rallies that we've seen, and we had all of the FUD that you can imagine piled on at exact key opportune moments, literally to the exact minute, certain tweets from Elon, if you remember back a month or two ago. All of that, and we could get Bitcoin underneath 30K for a single daily close. And people still believe that we are not only going to go below 20, we're going to go significantly below 20K. I don't know. I just have a very hard time believing that that makes any sense. And if it does, how long? Okay, if you're saying we're going to 10K, how long are we going to be under 10K? Or are we going to be at 10K for a couple of weeks, a couple of months? Are we literally going to spend half of a millisecond below 10K and immediately bounce back to 25K? I'm just curious what the thinking behind that idea is. And another thing I think is worth mentioning is that there are influencers that are always bearish that have been clouded up over the past 2 months because we inevitably got a drop. Because with Bitcoin and with any asset, there's always pumps and dumps. It's never just one way. It's always a give and take, all right? It's up and down. It's not just one thing. But I think it's important to remember, and if you're new to this space, if you've only been in for like 6 months or a year, something like that, the same people that are telling you right now that Bitcoin's going to 15 or 10K, they were also telling people when Bitcoin was at 4K that it was going to $500, that it was going to $300, okay? I remember some of these people literally telling people that. I remember watching their videos back then when they were saying things like that. And just like you need to be careful when people are telling you things that are overly bullish, you also need to be careful, very careful, of when people are telling you overly bearish things, because believe me, it's a thing. There are people that are just consistently bearish no matter what. And before we get into the charts, I also just think it's worth mentioning, because I think a lot of people are manipulated into this idea. When somebody's bearish and they, believe me, they mention it, every single day. They'll mention, I could be really popular if I was just bullish all the time like Moon Boys, right? That's absolutely not true. In fact, they stand out because they go against the crowd and they're bearish. And they actually benefit immensely in terms of popularity, literally by the simple fact of being different, by going against the crowd and being bearish. Now, does that mean that they're going to be right in the long term? Absolutely not. But I think it's extremely manipulative when, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, when people will brag about being bearish and say, well, I'm different than everybody that's Moon Boyish, in an attempt to persuade you into thinking, oh, you're right, this person's unique, this person must have it all figured out. Those people typically benefit immensely with the growth of their social media by literally repeating what I just said, by saying, I'm not like everyone else, I'm not a Moon Boy, I'm not like that. And all I'm saying is, if you're new to this space, and if you go back far enough, those people in the past so far have been extremely wrong. And instead of Bitcoin going from $4K to $300, it went from $4K to $65K. So that's just a little nugget of information I think a lot of you should take with you, because again, I think it's a fact, a lot of new people have joined crypto in the last year. And a lot of people are looking at people who have been bearish the entire time as some sort of genius. But you got to keep in mind, they actually have worse track records than the Moon Boys, which is pretty embarrassing, to be honest. Wow, so if we take a look here on the daily chart for Bitcoin, we have actually had a nice move up, another retest of 39,000. And as we talked about in yesterday's video, we actually had a little bit of a move to the downside, which I'm not convinced is over just yet. However, we did already have that retest that I talked about, this incredibly beefed up zone here, which so far has flipped into support. Now, is this going to hold true? Again, I'm gonna say honestly, I don't believe that just yet. Again, this move is still way too early to completely say, yeah, this was definitely a pullback retest and now we're just going straight up. I'm not gonna say that's the case, because I don't actually believe that. But after slicing right through this, we so far have gotten a retest exactly at this level. So at least a little bit, this zone has proven to provide some support for Bitcoin. And if we go to this chart here, you can see these 5 giant zones we've had here. We went up to the 4th one, got a little bit of rejection. Now we're trading within here. But yeah, for the most part, this falling wedge has gotten to like 90 to 95% of its breakout target, which is very impressive. We just talked about this back when it was 32 about a week ago, and it's basically already hit that. So it did go a little bit faster. Obviously, the squeeze made it go a lot faster than I think a lot of us were expecting. But as well, we're currently just battling some key Fibonacci levels. However, we have them underneath us now. So again, that's why we say about flipping them into support. You can see literally exactly where this one came down and touched. So far, it was like right about a little under 37, basically right on this level here. And on this one hour chart, it only spent like 2 hours. So it was a very quick bounce. It did not spend a lot of time retesting that. So again, that's looking good for Bitcoin. But the biggest thing here is that if we zoom out and go to the weekly chart, we have a gigantic fettuccine resistance here, and it's been that way since before we approached 65K. This was a pretty strong resistance since before we went up there. And we initially got up there, found 3 months of resistance at about 60K, and now for the past over 2 months now, that 40K again has been that strong resistance. So I'm not convinced just yet that Bitcoin does have the juice to get over this yet. We're in a much more bullish position than we've been any time over the past 2 months. Okay, we've had a long time to consolidate. We've had multiple attempts at breaking 30K where we did very briefly, but as I pointed out, it was for literal moments where we got a single daily close below 30K, ultimately not very impressive. So if you are somebody that believes we're going to 20K or 15K or 10K, I assume that you're saying we're going to go there for, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds, because realistically it makes no sense why we would trade at 10K for 2 or 3 months. I don't think anybody's saying that. But at the same time, I'm not sure bears know what they're saying either. I think they're just repeating the same things that other people are telling them with wild wave counts like this, which are just absolutely bananas. If I'm being just totally honest, makes absolutely no sense. But yeah, so again, this is just a huge level, a long-term level. So breaking 40K, even though we temporarily got above it just yesterday, that's going to be a pretty big test. And I don't necessarily expect Bitcoin to get above it just yet, but I also did not expect Bitcoin to completely shatter through so much of this long-term resistance over the past 2.5 months with basically no resistance. It just went straight above it. And now currently it's actually trying to turn that into support. So if we trade sideways here and we just try to maintain some of these levels, I think that's the best case here, as we just try to regain these supports as we're going to have to test them. Okay, as I said, it never is just up or it's never just down. It's always up and down all the time. So it's natural to think that after a 35% move, again, at this point, I think it's very smart to be expecting we might have some sort of a pullback at some point. You don't just get massive moves like this forever, okay? You usually have to, if anything, maybe get pullbacks and just retest some of these levels. So that's what I'm ideally waiting for. But yeah, how fast 40K gets broken is going to be huge. We have the DXY actually today showing a lot of weakness. Potentially, it did go below the 21 week. The 21-day moving average and kind of closed right on it. But it'll be interesting throughout this week to see if it can maintain that or if we actually put in a double top for the DXY. Again, I know the bears are just insanely bullish on the DXY for some reason. So they think that this is just going to absolutely blow up and literally repeat what happened in 2018. They think something like this is going to happen. Again, not sure why they believe that. But other than that, we want to see if these levels hold. Again, 36 to 37, I think, as I've been saying, I think that ultimately is just the level that we would just want to see hold and just continue to get daily closes above that and just cement that as new support. As for the entire last 2 months, it was basically a pretty heavy resistance zone where we barely got above it. And when we did, we quickly swung the other way, at which point, if we can kind of maintain that, then I think we can actually make a move above 40K. But still at this point, I think it's a little too early until we can kind of cement these levels. We just had a parabolic last week. So ideally, you want to see it cool down a little bit and just kind of reset some of the momentum so that we can, back test for support and then continue to climb higher. So if you get a new channel, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, turn on these absolute time-sensitive alerts. Make sure to check out the description below if you're interested in earning APY, TA, trading, any kind of bonuses like that. But without any further ado, that's it for me. Bye-bye.